Here we go again. This is Brexit plus, plus, plus. But what does that really mean? Vote Trump and vote Leave both rode to victory on the back of populist battle cries, which promised to build walls and reclaim controls of our borders. Yes, Trump and Brexit campaigners have both won, largely on promises of controlling immigration. But promises. President Trump won't, he can't, be as populist as candidate Trump. There's no way you can build a wall and make the Mexicans pay and kick out 11 million illegal immigrants and stop more coming in. We have to have open, outward-facing societies, not countries that simply promise to put themselves first. Trump and the Brexiteers have played to an isolationist, nativist ideology rather than the internationalist worldview that should be our shared future.
Well, firstly, I don't imagine he's going to be building this wall. It's just not a vision that I can see materialising. But I do think that when he was talking about controlling and protecting borders, I think it resonated with a lot of people. I think he talks about actually protecting his own nation and the safety of his citizens before prioritising the needs of other places. I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's what people want to see, and I think that's what he should be doing. I think there are things that he can do. He talks about checks on people coming in, checks on balances, making sure that actually people that are coming in are not going to be a danger. Nothing wrong with that. I would like to see that happen. He can put controls on the number of people that are coming in and the skills of which those people have. And again, I think that's absolutely fine. I don't think it's a problem. I think that we need to understand it's something that a lot of people feel passionate about, and also understand that some of the things that he said are ridiculous and unenforceable, such as banning all Muslims. It's not going to happen. That was a silly thing to say. Building walls ain't going to happen. Pretty silly thing to say. But I think it's getting the balance right. That's what he needs to do.
Greg, do you think that Trump is going to come up against the problem, which is that you can't have borders without free movement of people? So he's going to have this balancing act between free trade and immigration.
There was a great movie about 40 years ago. Yeah. You know, when I was young.
You weren't even young 40
called The Candidate with Robert Redford, right? And Robert Redford was standing to be the senator in California, and he was the outsider, and he did Trump. He wasn't the same sort of crude language, but it was the same sort of thing. Populist slogans all the time, bang, bang, bang. And the film finishes, and he wins. And the film finishes, they can't find him. And in the end, they go to look for him, and he's sitting on the toilet. And he looks up and he says, "What do we do now?" Now, there's a bit about Trump is, what do we do now? We can say all this stuff. We get the votes. We've now won the thing. Got to do some of it. If they're not going to build the wall, I mean, the wall almost epitomises the whole thing. And if they don't build the wall, then come next election, everyone will be saying, well, what happened to the wall?
His constituency won't care.
He's the Wizard of Oz, isn't he?
Because, as I said earlier, they'll put laser lights or something like that. He will be able to parlay it into something that will keep it. I didn't build a wall because I didn't want to waste that money. Instead, I've got laser tracking beam. That's what he'll do.
I think you're underestimating the expectations. You know, they think he's going to put Hillary in jail. You know, they think he's going to build these walls and kick these people out. And, you know, I mean, there are some things to say in his favour. For example, he's got, unlike Obama, who had a very hostile Congress, you know, he's got a Republican Senate and a House of Representatives. He's going to pack the Supreme Court, no doubt, with Conservatives, which is probably going to allow his legacy. He's going to allow his legacy to go. Well, he's got at least one vacancy he's going to be able to fill. It's probably going to allow his legacy to carry on way into the future. So I think, unfortunately, he is going to be able to do real things. But this is the problem, you know. Everybody, we know that politics is kind of broken. That's why people voted Trump. But what's going to happen when they realise that he is not the answer? He's not going to be able to deliver.
Can he reverse globalisation? Because if he if the genie's out the bottle, then he can't deliver any of what he's talking about.
No, he's unleashed a terrible genie from the bottle, because what he's traded on is that capitalism has failed most of middle America. The alternative socialism is completely undesired in the United States of America. So what has come in through the gap, the middle, is populism. So what on earth is he going to do to satisfy the demands of this popular uprising that he's created?
Maybe it is going to look socialist. I mean, he's going to launch these huge infrastructure projects. He's probably going to have to basically borrow huge amounts of money to pay for public sector jobs for people to build.
Yeah. By the way, can we just remind ourselves that national debt is running at 108% of GDP? What's he going to do, Nick?
You just don't get it. Part 2.
Part 112.
No, part 2 today. Regarding immigration, to these people, they see that they don't get jobs or they're held back. And indeed, in this country, they don't get jobs. The schools are full, the hospitals are full. I know for you it means that you get a cheaper Polish gardener or a Filipino woman to do your ironing. I know that's the reality for you. But for the people out there, it means they can't get jobs and they can't get their kids into schools. That's the truth, and that's what played in America. That is it.
They depend on immigration just as much as we do here, which is why I've got my blue collar on.
Yeah. Look at the history. If you look at the history of America, every migrant group hated the next one. That's the whole history of what America was built on. It's built on immigration, and everybody hated everybody hated the next lot coming in. And they will continue to come in because they'll need them to come in. But I don't think that's what the Rust Belt's about. The Rust Belt's not full of them. I mean, it's about industry that had built America, as they saw it, closing down. And it's closed down because vast chunks of it has been exported. Now, can he change that? If he can change that, it's going to cost America. It's going to cost those people. They will no longer be buying shirts for £2, I'll tell you.
I thought it was very significant that on the election of Trump, obviously the peso cratered, but which were the stocks that rose? We had JP Morgan, we had Wells Fargo, we had Morgan Stanley.
Hang on, where were the general... because they think they're going to be building walls. They do. They went
no
through the
manufacturing
roof,
stocks went up. Where were the General Motors and the Kellogg's and all those? If he was going to give jobs back to Middle America in the Rust Belt and the redneck states, why didn't those stocks rise? Nobody believes him. He made empty promises to get elected. He told the electorate exactly what they wanted to hear. And he's going to be found out really soon.
You saw that in the acceptance speech, because suddenly in that speech, Hillary had gone from being a criminal who should be in jail, which he said time after time after time, to being a fine public servant and we should thank her for her contribution. You suddenly thought, he didn't like that. The system is now taking over. And I suspect the system will take over, which is why I think he is not the great danger. I think he's a deeply unpleasant human being, and we shouldn't, and a crook and all sorts of things. But I'm getting like him and Hillary.
But unlike Brexit, we've got to accept it. We can't challenge it. These people should just go back to their homes.
It's a bit sad. It's a bit sad because they rejected Hillary because she represented the political establishment, which I understand. I mean, to me, there wasn't anything particularly appealing about Hillary, and I can see why she didn't appeal to voters. Even the ones who voted for her weren't particularly compelled by her. They voted for him because they wanted a change, they wanted something different, they want real answers to their problems. He's a generation behind. The time to be solving the manufacturing problem was the last generation. Now it's automation. Those jobs won't even exist in 10 or 20 years. Also, he can't solve that problem with any of the things that he's offering.
That really pathetic thing that Bill Clinton said all those years ago when he said, why did you win? He said, it's the economy, stupid.
But there are stuff that he can do. So he talks very much about companies that are outsourcing different jobs and different aspects of their business. He can look at things like if they're going to be awarding contracts to organisations that are mandating, actually, I don't know, you need to use local whatever, or you need to be creating the products over here. There are things that he can do. He can also...
What's to stop them voting with their feet? If he imposes punitive regulation on companies, they'll just move somewhere where they can do it more cheaply and more easily. That's the globalised world.
Yeah, but he can also look at...
Trump may not stick to his promises, but here on The Pledge we do. And last week I did make a solemn pledge, which was I would wear double denim on this week's show. Just showing I did. Thank you.
Well, I think it's very impressive.